The Detroit Lions entered the 2026 offseason at a fascinating crossroads. For the first time in decades, this is a franchise that is no longer rebuilding. This is a team that expects to contend. That shift in expectations changes everything about how the front office operates, how fans evaluate moves, and how the roster is constructed around a Super Bowl window that suddenly feels very real. Yet with those expectations comes pressure. After another playoff push that ultimately fell short, the Lions now find themselves navigating a complicated offseason filled with roster turnover, financial limitations, and a series of strategic decisions that could define the next phase of this franchise's rise. General Manager Brad Holmes has built his reputation on patience. Since arriving in Detroit, his philosophy has been clear: build through the draft, develop your core, and use free agency only as a tool to reinforce the foundation rather than replace it. That approach helped transform the Lions from a perennial basement dweller into one of the most exciting teams in the league. But the challenge now is maintaining that trajectory while managing the natural churn that happens once a roster becomes expensive and competitive. The 2026 offseason has already delivered dramatic changes across multiple position groups. The offensive line, once the unquestioned backbone of the team, is entering a period of transition. Defensive leadership has shifted with the departure of key veterans. Several familiar faces have moved on to new teams, and Detroit has responded with a series of calculated signings designed to stabilize the roster without compromising the long-term vision. And perhaps the most important move of the offseason so far centers around the middle of the offensive line. The Lions' decision to sign center Cade Mays to a 3-year deal worth $25 million is one of those acquisitions that might not dominate national headlines, but could quietly shape the success of the offense for years to come. Fans immediately embraced the move, with overwhelming approval ratings from the Detroit faithful. More than 90% of respondents in fan surveys graded the signing A, B, or higher, reflecting a belief that Detroit secured both value and potential at a critical position. To understand why this move carries so much significance, you have to understand the journey that brought Mays to this moment. His path to becoming an NFL center was anything but traditional. During his college career at Tennessee, Mays barely played the position. In fact, before entering the league, he had taken just a handful of emergency snaps at center. When he was drafted in the 6th round by the Carolina Panthers, the expectation was that he would develop as a guard. Early in his career, he found himself buried on the depth chart, inactive for weeks, and even lining up at fullback in certain situations just to get onto the field. But adversity has a way of revealing hidden potential. When injuries devastated Carolina's offensive line, Mays suddenly found himself thrust into the center position out of necessity. What followed was one of the most surprising position transformations in recent NFL memory. Almost overnight, he became one of the league's most efficient pass-blocking centers. Over multiple seasons, he allowed 0 sacks while posting elite pass protection grades. His emergence didn't just earn him playing time. It earned him the opportunity to become Detroit's new anchor in the middle of the line. For a Lions offense built on physicality, Mays represents the perfect philosophical match. Head coach Dan Campbell has repeatedly emphasized that Detroit's identity begins in the trenches. This is a team that wants to run north and south, punish defenses with physical blocking schemes, and control the tempo of games through sheer force. Mays fits that vision perfectly. Standing 6'6" and weighing over 320 pounds, he brings the size and aggression that Detroit covets at the position. Even more interesting is the fact that Mays has openly studied the game of former Lions center Frank Ragnow, modeling his approach after one of the most respected linemen of the modern era. That connection creates a symbolic passing of the torch. Ragnow helped establish Detroit's reputation for dominant offensive line play. Now Mays steps into that legacy with the opportunity to build on it. But the center position isn't the only area where the Lions have made strategic additions. The team also brought in veteran tight end Tyler Conklin on a 1-year deal, adding experience and versatility to a position group that was devastated by injuries last season. Detroit's tight end room became a revolving door in 2025, with multiple players landing on injured reserve and forcing the coaching staff to cycle through replacements week after week. Conklin arrives with a reputation as a reliable receiver and a capable blocker. While his most recent season with the Los Angeles Chargers was statistically underwhelming, his previous track record tells a different story. Before that down year, he recorded at least 50 receptions in 4 consecutive seasons while playing for the Jets and Vikings. That level of consistency suggests that Detroit may be getting a player whose production could bounce back in the right environment. The signing also creates valuable insurance behind rising star Sam Laporta, who continues to recover from a back injury. If Laporta needs time to fully regain his form, Conklin provides a veteran presence capable of stabilizing the offense. If Laporta returns at full strength, Conklin still offers depth and flexibility, potentially competing with Brock Wright for the secondary tight end role. Defensively, Detroit has also begun addressing a critical weakness in the secondary. The addition of nickel cornerback Roger McCreary may prove to be one of the most underrated moves of the entire offseason. McCreary brings a physical playing style that aligns perfectly with Detroit's defensive philosophy. As a slot defender, he excels at press coverage, disrupting routes early and forcing receivers off their timing. That skill set is particularly valuable in today's NFL, where offenses rely heavily on quick passing concepts and slot receivers to move the chains. By adding McCreary, the Lions gain a defender capable of challenging those routes at the line of scrimmage while also contributing aggressively against the run. And that toughness matters because the Lions' defense is entering a period of adjustment. The departures of veterans like linebacker Alex Anzalone and defensive tackle Roy Lopez have created leadership voids that the coaching staff must now fill. Detroit's defensive identity has always been built on relentless effort and physicality, but maintaining that culture requires the right personnel. McCreary's willingness to engage in run support and physical coverage fits perfectly within that framework. Still, as promising as these additions are, the Lions' offseason story is far from complete. One of the biggest ongoing challenges for Holmes will be reinforcing the pass rush opposite superstar edge defender Aiden Hutchinson. Hutchinson has established himself as the centerpiece of Detroit's defensive front, but the team continues to search for consistent production on the opposite side. Several potential free agent targets remain on the market, including experienced veterans capable of providing rotational impact. Players like Cam Jordan, Joey Bosa, and Jadeveon Clowney represent intriguing possibilities. Each comes with a unique blend of strengths and risks. Jordan offers elite run defense and durability despite his age. Bosa remains one of the league's most technically gifted pass rushers when healthy. Clowney has proven capable of producing for multiple teams and could thrive in a scheme that emphasizes stunts and creative pressure packages. The Lions don't necessarily need a superstar opposite Hutchinson. What they need is reliability. Someone who can command attention from opposing offensive lines, win key matchups on third down, and prevent teams from focusing all their protection schemes on Hutchinson. Meanwhile, Detroit's roster changes extend beyond free agency. The team traded running back David Montgomery earlier in the offseason, a move that reshaped the backfield rotation. In his place, the Lions added explosive runner Isaiah Pacheco, whose downhill running style could complement the electric playmaking of Jahmyr Gibbs. Together, they form a backfield capable of attacking defenses with both power and speed. Quarterback stability remains another major advantage for Detroit. Franchise signal caller Jared Goff is firmly entrenched as the starter, and the organization has already restructured his contract to create additional salary cap flexibility. That move not only frees up resources for roster improvements, but also reinforces the team's commitment to Goff as the leader of the offense. But perhaps the most intriguing storyline of this offseason is the broader strategic picture. Brad Holmes isn't chasing headlines. He's assembling depth, versatility, and competition across the roster. The Lions aren't trying to win March. They're trying to win January. Every signing, every release, every calculated risk reflects that long-term mindset. And that's exactly why Detroit remains one of the most fascinating teams to watch as the 2026 season approaches. Right now, the Lions are walking a delicate line between continuity and evolution. They're replacing veterans, reshaping position groups, and preparing for the next stage of their competitive window. If these moves work, Detroit could emerge deeper, more flexible, and more dangerous than ever before. Before we dive further into how these roster changes could reshape the Lions' championship hopes, take a moment to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. If you love deep NFL analysis, roster breakdowns, and everything happening around the league, you won't want to miss the next video. Because the truth is, this offseason is about more than just filling roster spots. It's about defining the next chapter of Detroit football. The Lions are no longer the underdog story. They are now a contender navigating the difficult transition from rising team to established powerhouse. The decisions made during this offseason will determine whether this window stays open or begins to close. And if Brad Holmes continues to find hidden value in free agency while developing young talent through the draft, there's every reason to believe that Detroit's best football may still be ahead. So as the dust settles from the first wave of transactions and the second wave of free agency begins, the Lions remain positioned to make additional moves that could elevate the roster even further. Whether that means adding another pass rusher, reinforcing the offensive line, or strengthening the secondary, the blueprint is clear. Build smart, stay physical, and keep pushing forward. If you enjoyed this deep dive into the Lions' offseason strategy and want more detailed breakdowns of every roster move, every trade, and every free agent target, make sure to subscribe to the channel and drop a comment below with your thoughts on Detroit's biggest offseason move so far. Because one thing is certain, the next stage of the Detroit Lions journey is just beginning.